There was a manure spreader so good it could fling a soupy load 50 feet out the side and lay it down without a single lump. Another could chew up whole frozen round bales and grind silage out of a pit. And one humble box spreader was so dependable that farmers are still rebuilding them 60 years later just to keep them running. These are the forgotten manure spreaders of the tractor age, filthy, brilliant, and unkillable. Let's dig in. Number 10. The John Deere Model 33. We start with a machine that defined the changeover from the horse age to the tractor age. By about the mid-1950s, John Deere had finally decided that the market for horse-drawn spreaders no longer existed and discontinued its old horse-drawn Model M. What replaced that thinking was a generation of tractor-pulled, PTO-driven spreaders, and the John Deere 33 is a perfect, honest example of the breed. The Model 33 was a straightforward, no-nonsense box spreader. It ran off the tractor's 540 RPM power takeoff, with a solid rear beater that shredded and flung the manure as the apron chain dragged the load to the back. Typical units measured around 10 feet long and 5 feet wide, with a 4-foot wide beater doing the work at the rear. There was nothing exotic about it, and that was exactly the point. What makes the 33 great is its sheer staying power as a working tool. Decades after the last one was built, these spreaders still turn up at farm auctions across the Midwest, getting bought, rebuilt, and put right back to work. You'll see listings for a JD33 with a freshly rebuilt floor, a good non-rusted apron, and a 540 PTO sold to a working farmer who just wants a simple machine that does the job. It's worth pausing on why a machine like this was such a relief to own. Right up until the late 1930s, the only way to load any spreader was by hand with a pitchfork. At best, a time-consuming chore. At worst, in a bedding-packed cattle shed. A genuinely back-breaking ordeal. By the time the Model 33 was working behind a small John Deere tractor in the 1950s, mechanical loaders had started to take over that loading job too, and the spreader itself ran off engine power instead of slipping ground drive wheels. A farmer could fill it, drive out, and lay down an even load without ever touching a fork. The fact that a 1950s box spreader is still earning its keep on real farms today tells you everything about how right John Deere got the fundamentals. It's the everyman spreader, forgotten by history books, remembered fondly by anyone who ever owned one. Number 9. The New Idea 200 series. New Idea built its entire company on manure spreaders going back to the 1890s. And by the 1950s and 60s, the company's reputation for building them longer and tougher than anyone else was carried by machines like the 200 series, the 200, 201, and the popular 213 and 214 models. These were the spreaders that bridged New Idea's horse-drawn heritage and the modern tractor era. They kept the rugged, proven layout, an apron chain dragging the load rearward to spinning beaters, but were built to be pulled and powered by tractors. New Idea's whole identity was durability, as one longtime parts dealer put it. The company built the best manure spreaders and made them longer than anyone else, once operating out of a Coldwater, Ohio plant with 20 acres under one roof. The brand was such an institution that when New Idea wound down its classic spreader production around 1963, there were so many still working on farms that an entire cottage industry sprang up just to keep them alive. They weren't perfect. Owners of the 213 and 214 will tell you about the bar under the rear that could work loose and let the beater sag, or the apron chain that loved to break with a full load on board and a fork in your hands. But those were the gripes of people who used them hard for years because the machines kept earning their place in the barnyard. That's the remarkable legacy here. When New Idea eventually ran out of replacement parts, a customer named Moses Erb went straight to the factory in Coldwater, Ohio, bought up all the leftover raw castings, and started manufacturing parts himself to keep those old spreaders running. Companies still make brand new replacement paddles, aprons, and beater parts for these machines today. A spreader line that ended 60 years ago has never really died. Farmers simply refuse to let it. The 200 series wasn't flashy, but it was so well built that it outlived its own manufacturer's parts department, and that's a forgotten great if there ever was one. Number 8. The International Harvester PTO Box Spreader. International Harvester had been a titan of the spreader business since 1906, when it bought Joseph Kemp's 20th century line. By the 1950s, IH carried that legacy straight into the tractor era with a new generation of PTO-driven box spreaders designed to pair with its hugely popular farm-all tractors. If you flip through the McCormick International Harvester advertising archives, the spreader ads run year after year, all the way from the 1910s right up through machines advertised alongside the farm-all in the 1950s. That continuity is the whole story. IH never treated the manure spreader as an afterthought. It advertised these humble machines more heavily than almost any other implement it built because the company understood that a spreader was the implement that kept a farm's soil and therefore its livelihood alive. The 1950s IH spreaders took the back-saving lessons of the earlier low Corn King designs, keeping the loading box down low so a farmer didn't have to pitch heavy forkfuls up over a tall sidewall, and married them to PTO power. Now the beaters spun with the steady, controllable force of the tractor engine instead of depending on ground-drive wheels slipping in mud. That shift mattered more than it sounds. A ground-driven spreader could stall its own beaters in a soft, wet field exactly when you needed them spinning hardest, while a PTO machine kept tearing and throwing the load no matter how slowly you crept along. These machines were the workhorses behind countless mixed-family farms of the Eisenhower era, spreading manure behind a red farm-all on 1,000 cold mornings. The specific model names have largely faded from memory, but the lineage and the back-saving tractor-powered practicality was genuinely great, and it carried one of America's biggest farm equipment names through the most important transition in spreader history. Number 7. The Starline Side Slinger. Now we get to one of the most beloved cult machines in this whole category. A spreader people still talk about with real affection decades later. The Starline Side Slinger. This was a fundamentally different design from the standard rear beater box. Instead of dragging a load back to beaters at the rear, the Starline used flail chains fitted with T-irons that whirled around and flung the material out to the side of the machine. Farmers who use them swear by them for one specific reason: the even spread. When you wanted to lay manure thin and uniform across a hayfield, no clumps, no lumps, no piles to rake out, the Starline Side Slinger was the machine that leapt to mind. Operators described spreading not just manure with it, but lime mixed with manure and slurry pumped from a neighbor's lagoon, all laid down beautifully. It was prized as a model of mechanical simplicity. No apron chains slopping out the back to break, just flail chains you periodically shortened as they stretched, and a big drive chain from the PTO to the flail shaft. As one farmer put it, the maintenance was nothing a 12-year-old couldn't handle. Owners would also fabricate their own replacement digger weights for the flails over the years, the kind of farm shop simplicity that kept these machines alive for a decade or more in regular use. So why is it forgotten? Because the very thing that made it simple also limited it. Being open from front to back, a loaded Starline could have a surge problem on the road. The load could shift and slosh as you traveled, and as dairy farms grew larger through the 1970s and 80s, they needed bigger machines and turned to enclosed V-tank slurry spreaders that hauled more material per trip. Greater capacity made the flail jobs obsolete, and the side slinger faded away. But for the era it served on the fields it was built for, the Starline was genuinely great. The spreader that laid down the cleanest, most even pass of all, and one that plenty of old-timers say they'd happily own again. Number 6. The New Holland 327S. New Holland is famous for hay tools, but it also built some of the most respected box spreaders of the era. And the 327S is the one that defined the late 1960s and 70s for a huge number of farms. The New Holland 327S was a box manure spreader with a single beater. In production from January 1966 all the way through December 1979. A remarkable 14-year run that tells you how well farmers received it. 14 years in production with minimal fuss is a quiet badge of honor in the implement world. It means the design was right and the market kept asking for it. The 327S did exactly what a great box spreader should. It hauled a solid load. The apron chain fed it rearward at a controllable rate, and the single bottom beater fitted with New Holland's hardened steel paddles tore the manure apart and threw it out the back in a usable pattern. Those beta paddles became so standardized across New Holland's lineup that a single replacement paddle design fits dozens of models spanning decades, from the 145 right up through the 800 series. That kind of parts commonality is a hidden sign of smart engineering. It meant farmers and dealers could keep these machines running cheaply and easily for years. The 327S is the kind of machine that never makes headlines, but quietly forms the backbone of an entire industry. It was dependable, repairable, and built in such numbers that you still find them working and for sale today. A forgotten great, hiding in plain sight in barnyards across the country. Number 5. The Gell Scavenger. If the Starline was the cult favorite, the Gell Scavenger was the heavy-duty problem solver, and one of its most clever features had nothing to do with the beaters at all. Gell, a respected Wisconsin company, designed the Scavenger with a feature that set it apart from nearly every competitor: automotive-style steering, rather than the traditional wagon-style steering used on most spreaders. That sounds like a small thing, until you've tried to back a wagon steer spreader under a manure carrier or thread it through a narrow barnyard gate. The auto-style steering let the operator position the Scavenger precisely under a loader or in a tight space, and made it far easier to steer through the narrow gates and lanes that are so common on real farms. But the Scavenger's real claim to fame was its appetite. It used a powered auger and beater system that could chew through material that defeated lesser machines. Owners report it would spread practically anything you put in it. Heifer shed pack bedded with shredded corn stalks, loaded as high as the box would hold, with no trouble. One former Gale engineer recalled the machines being tough enough that operators used them to tear apart whole round bales and even grind up frozen silage out of a pit. The Scavenger was so well regarded that the New Holland Vif-Tank slurry spreaders of the era were actually built on the Gell Scavenger design, a quiet endorsement from a major competitor. Gell eventually stopped making them, which is part of why the name has faded. The machines did have their quirks. Like any auger spreader, they demanded respect, and operators learned not to let one freeze solid with a load in it or to feed it whole round bales carelessly, or they'd pay for it in broken drive chains and worn gearboxes. But run within their limits, they were remarkable. Plenty of farmers called the Scavenger one of the best spreaders out there, and side discharge versions like the Gell 309 could pulverize a load and throw an even spread roughly 50 feet off to the side. Perfect for hayfields, with no piles or lumps left behind. Heavy-duty, cleverly steered, and nearly unstoppable, a forgotten great. Number 4. The New Holland 519. By the late 1970s, farms were getting bigger and farmers wanted more capacity and more control, and New Holland answered with machines like the 519 box spreader. The New Holland 519 was in production from July 1977 through July 1983, slotting in as one of the larger, more capable box spreaders in the lineup as the company modernized its range. It carried forward everything that made the earlier 327S so trusted: the rugged box, the proven apron and beater system, the interchangeable hardened paddles, but in a bigger, higher capacity package suited to the growing operations of the era. This is the machine that represents the maturing of the box spreader concept. New Holland had by this point refined the formula over more than a decade. Corrosion-resistant steel for the floor and sides to survive the relentlessly punishing cargo, controllable apron speeds so the operator could dial in everything from a slow spread to a fast clean-out right from the tractor seat, and a parts ecosystem so standardized that maintenance was straightforward. The 519 also points toward a genuine New Holland innovation that defined the era: optional slurry sides. Adding tall slurry sides to a box spreader could increase its capacity by roughly 25% and cut down on the splashover of wetter material, a clever, low-cost way to make one machine handle both solid and semi-liquid loads as livestock operations shifted toward wetter manure. The 519 wasn't glamorous, but it was the right machine at the right moment, scaling the trusty box spreader up to meet a changing industry. Another quiet, capable, forgotten great. Number 3. The Gell 1300 series Scavenger. Gell earns a second spot on this list because the company didn't rest on the original Scavenger. It kept evolving the design into the larger, more refined 1300 series, the machines that carried the Scavenger name into the 1980s. The 1300 series scavenger spreaders, models like the 1309, 1312, 1315, and 1322 were specifically recognized as among the most innovative and durable machinery Gell produced, sitting in the same league as the company's celebrated skid loaders and disc mower conditioners. These were bigger, tougher machines built for the demands of larger livestock farms, but they retained the scavenger DNA, the powered auger system that broke up and moved difficult material, paired with the precise auto-style steering that made the original such a pleasure to maneuver. What makes the 1300 series notable is that it represents Gell's reputation as the leader in non-tractor farm machinery applied at full strength to manure handling. Gell wasn't a tractor company dabbling in implements. It was a specialist that lived and died by the quality of its standalone machines, and the Scavenger line was a flagship of that philosophy. Farmers who ran them in the 80s relied on them to handle enormous volumes of bedded pack and difficult material that would have choked a simpler beater spreader. The Gell Scavenger line eventually ended, and the name slipped out of the spotlight. But the 1300 series stands as the high watermark of the auger-driven heavy spreader, a machine that proved a manure spreader could be a piece of serious innovative engineering, genuinely great and genuinely forgotten by everyone except the farmers who depended on it. Number 2. The New Holland Slurry Side Box Spreader. Our number 2 isn't a single model number, so much as a genuinely clever New Holland innovation that quietly solved a real problem during this era, and it deserves recognition as one of the smartest ideas in spreader design. As dairy and hog operations modernized through the 1970s and 80s, the manure they produced changed. With less bedding being used, the material got wetter, soupier, and harder to contain in a standard open box. A traditional box spreader built for solid bedded manure would let that semi-liquid slurry slop and splash over the sides during loading and transport, wasteful and messy. New Holland's answer was the slurry side. Tall add-on side panels that turned an ordinary box spreader into a machine that could handle semi-liquid loads. This New Holland exclusive increased a spreader's capacity by approximately 25% and dramatically reduced splashover, all without requiring the farmer to buy a completely separate, expensive enclosed slurry tank. It was the kind of practical, cost-conscious engineering that working farmers love. Take a proven, dependable box spreader and, with one smart accessory, extend its abilities to cover an entirely new type of material. This is the unsung hero of the list, precisely because it's so humble. It's not a glamorous machine, it's a brilliant adaptation. While competitors pushed expensive new tank designs, New Holland found a way to let its trusted box spreaders evolve with a changing industry. The slurry side concept extended the working life and versatility of countless machines, and it's exactly the kind of clever, forgotten innovation that this whole list celebrates. A great idea, hiding behind a very unglamorous job. Number 1. The Night Slinger. For our number 1, we go to the machine that finally cracked the problem all the others had been circling for decades, and did it so well that it's still in production today, even though most people have never heard the name. The first Slinger side discharge manure spreader rolled out of the Knight Manufacturing Company in Wisconsin in 1984. Here was the challenge it was built to solve. By the mid-1980s, modern dairy farmers were dealing with both slurry, semi-liquid manure, and solid material, and they wanted one single machine that could handle all of it. The traditional rear beater box couldn't manage that range. The flail side slingers like the Star line had faded. Farmers were stuck juggling different equipment for different jobs. The Knight Slinger changed everything with a side discharge design that flung material out to the side in a wide, even pattern. And crucially, it could handle the widest possible range of materials: wet, dry, slurry, solid, and everything in between, in one machine. It was such a smart, capable solution that Knight kept improving it. In 1993, the company introduced the revolutionary Pro-Twin twin auger design specifically to eliminate the material bridging and clogging problems that had plagued every previous attempt, ensuring smooth, even delivery no matter what you loaded. The proof of its greatness is in the legacy. Knight Manufacturing was so successful with the Slinger that in 2002 it was purchased by the European farm equipment giant Kuhn, and the Wisconsin facility became the headquarters of Kuhn North America. The Slinger didn't just survive, it became the foundation of a major international company's North American operations. and it's still being built and sold today, with the brand celebrating its 40th anniversary in 2024, 4 decades after that first 1984 machine. The Knight Slinger earns the #1 spot because it did exactly what a great machine should do. It identified the one problem everyone else had given up on: a single spreader for slurry and solids alike, solved it with real ingenuity, and quietly became an industry standard that outlived its own creator's company name. Most people will never recognize the name Knight, but every time a modern spreader flings manure cleanly out to the side across a wide, even swath, they're watching that 1984 breakthrough still at work. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the machines that quietly built the modern world, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.